let's take a look at the rarest commercial release Star Wars vintage action figure ever, and what it would look like if it was released in the US. Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back at you with another video. And what are we going to look at today? Well, we're going to look at Flex. Hope I said his name right. I never heard it pronounced. I think it's Flex. And I'm sure if I pronounce it wrong, you'll tell me that in the comments below. But we're going to take a look at the figure that did get released outside the US and what it would have looked like if it got released in the US. Now, this is the rarest of the commercial release Star Wars figure. By commercial released, I mean it was released to the public. It wasn't a prototype. It wasn't a variation or anything. This was a figure just normally released, but it didn't get released in the US. In fact, Vlix didn't even get released by Kenner. It got released by a Brazilian toy company called Glasslead. Glasslead, I believe how you pronounce that one. Now, it was planned to be released in the Kenner line for Series 2 of the Droids line, but that line, as you know, was canceled. And it seems that Kenner sold the mold to this Brazilian company who produced the figure and produced it in very low numbers. So you got an action figure line that didn't sell that well, a very low production number, and only released in Brazil. So you know this figure is going to be rare. But before we look at that actual figure that hit Brazil, let's take a look at what we might have got in the US, as we have seen prototypes of the figure and even a prototype on card. And the card is different than the one released in Brazil. Well, let's take a look at that. This is the only one to be known to be on a Kenner card. Again, it was never released. As you can see, the Kenner card does look different than the one released in Brazil. Let's take a look at side by side. As you can see, it's totally different. Now, this figure on card isn't really a figure. Like I've said, it's a prototype. It's a hard copy. It's not a true action figure, and it's very heavy. As you can see here, the gun the figure would have came with was the same gun that the AT-AT driver had. Now, if you have the Glasslead one, he comes with a Hoff Trooper gun, but it's black rather than the normal blue. Now, as you can see, the card is totally different. But what about the figure itself? Was there any difference with it? Well, as you can see side by side, the paint color is a little different. The one on the right is the US prototype, and the one on the left is the one released in Brazil. The US one has toes painted blue, while the one released in Brazil does not. Also, the one on the prototype in the US, the ears are painted, and the eyebrows are painted up and lower sides, unlike the released one from Brazil. Now, again, this figure is rare, and in fact, for a long time, people didn't even know this was released. I remember collecting back in the 90s, there was even a lot of talk if it was just salesman samples in Brazil, if it actually officially got released in stores. But over the years, we have learned that it did get released in Brazil, just in very limited numbers, making it extremely rare to find on card. Even loose is extremely rare. This thing sells for a lot. A loose one might run you as low as $5,000, but as high up as $20,000 just for the figure loose. And what about one on card? That one's going to cost you any more, usually between $45,000 and $6,000, and that price is only going up over time, as most of these are in collectors' hands where they're staying put. And it's funny, back in the 90s, every once in a while you could find these in Toy Shop magazine. Here's the ad from 1994. It's an auction ad starting at $450. Now, I would be very cautious about buying from this ad, as they're selling a fake Boba Fett prototype with the rocket launcher. Here's an ad from 1996, and they're asking $500. That seems incredibly low, so I'm guessing this is a fake one, or maybe a lot of times when it comes to toy shop ads, these sellers would put rare stuff in the ad to get people to call and ask about it and say, oh, sorry, we've sold it, but look, we also have this, as a way to try to sell more items. But here's another ad from 1996. Someone's asking almost $2,000. What seems about right for the 1996 price. Well, let's take a look at the one that did get released in Brazil. As you can see, it doesn't say Kenner, it says Gaslight, or is it Gaslight? Man, that joke's getting old. As you can see, the card in Brazil is just a more generic card. All the Droids figures were released on this card in Brazil, rather than giving a focus to each character on the card. As you can see, he comes with a Hoff Trooper gun, again black rather than blue. Now, the Brazil one didn't come with a coin, but if released in the US, it would have came with a coin, and there's at least 3 different prototypes of this coin. 1 in gold and 2 in silver. What's different? Why 2 in silver? Well, The gold one and one of the silver ones has the word villain spelt wrong. I know, it's like I work for the toy company or something. As you can see, it's missing an I on the gold coin and the silver coin. But it was corrected on some of the prototypes. Again, none of these coins were ever released. So I know you're like me, you're curious. What did it say about this obscure figure on the back of this coin? Did it tell us more about him? After all, he was only in Series 2 of the show. Well, the back of the coin is kind of odd. I know it's probably hard to see in this photo here, but it says, Tig Forms, constant companion and watchdog, and the best dressed gangster in town. As I said, a very odd thing on the back of the coin, but it is true, he was probably the best dressed gangster in Star Wars. Now, if you're looking to buy this thing, be warned, there's a lot of fake ones out there. Reproduction, as the community likes to call it, repos. Now, if you want to have a fake one in your collection, go right ahead. Me personally, if I was going to buy a fake one, I wouldn't, but if I was, I wouldn't spend more than $100 for a fake one. But I've seen fake ones go for, $500-600, especially on card. But we're loose, I definitely wouldn't pay more than $100 for it. So if you want it in your loose collection, a reproduction, just so you can say, hey, look, I got all the figures, although that one's fake, don't go crazy paying for that. But again, to be warned, there's a lot of fake ones out there, not just loose, but on a fake card also. And these fake ones going for a lot of money. Again, I don't really understand why someone would pay $1,000 for a fake figure. For me, that's like paying $1,000 for a Star Wars poster that's autographed just by some guy in his basement writing Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and all the stars' name on it. Doesn't really do anything if it's fake, but hey, that's just me. Some guys out there like fake stuff in their collection, and I'm not going to tell you what you can have and can't have in your collection. Tell me what you think about this figure. Me personally, I don't really get into the droids line. If I saw one at a flea market, of course I would buy it, but I'm okay without it. I just like having stuff from the movie. Never was a fan of the droids cartoon. Let me know what you think about this figure in the comments below. Thumb up, like my content. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.